You're on Team Human, Conscious Intervention in the Machine, a chance to look up at the tallest building in our towns and figure out just what it is we worship here. It's not too late to change our gods or even change teams. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and I'm inviting you back to Team Human. Playing for Team Human today, my longtime friend and occasional co-conspirator, narrative strategist and political activist behind the Harry Potter Alliance, comedian Andrew Slack. Andrew has conceived campaigns bringing attention to human rights violations in Sudan, to illiteracy, immigration reform, economic justice, LGBT rights, sexism, labor rights, mental health, body image, climate change. And today, together, we're going to deconstruct the corporatization of our lives. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm very grateful to be here, Doug.
So you just wrote a new piece, America's Kryptonite, which is on your is that a Substack?
So my Substack, yeah.
Substack called, what do you call this Substack?
It's called Orphans and Empires.
Orphans and Empires. And it actually, it reminded me, I'll plug this. It reminded me of the research and the time of my life I spent writing, which is actually, this is my most researched actual real book. It's the one real book, because it's like I went and found the Dutch East India Trading Company charters, and
well, it's insanely well researched. Yeah. Like, 'cause I'm in the middle of it, and it was like blowing my mind. And I was wondering, are all of your books this well researched? Because this was insane.
No, they're not.
This was like, how has he got so many fucking books? Like, this is insane.
It propelled like 3 others and a dissertation.
Okay.
The reason I brought up Life Inc. is in this piece you wrote, I felt like you very well condensed what would have taken 6 or 8 hours of people to read into a really coherent story about what's happened in America in particular. And I kind of want to walk through that story because for me it really helped explain how we got to the place we're at, and also maybe how to change the trajectory that we're on. This piece began with you writing about the ghost in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Which is not a way I had ever looked at it. I had always known that, that they added that stuff in the 14th Amendment about corporations being people. But this is a really interesting idea about this sort of negative space that you discovered.
So let's go back 15 years with the Tea Party. And the way the Tea Party was citing the Boston Tea Party, it was so much about, Obama this and big government that, and there was very little bit at that time about corporations.
Right. People understood the Boston Tea Party as American patriots against King George.
Yes.
Right. And it wasn't at all.
Well, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought that they were citing something real, but I felt like they weren't citing the essence of what the aspirational ideals in the U.S. Constitution were.
Right.
Until I found out a little bit from you, and then a lot from that podcast Empire, where they were going over the history of the East India Company, and they start talking about Bengal, and I forget the guy's name. He's a brilliant British guy. He's talking about what they did, killing up to 10 million people. I mean, it's debatable as to how many, but it was up to 10 million, at least 1 million.
Yeah. And
these horrific, like just absolutely horrific conditions. And this was how the corporation cut its teeth. This was this imperialism that was akin to genocide, at the same time that the other big corporation is cutting its teeth on slavery.
Right. So now this was British East India Trading Company?
Yeah. That's right.
And they're in Bengal, which is like India.
I think it's East India and Bangladesh today. Yeah.
Right. They're over there. And what are they doing? They're just making tea?
They were I mean, this history better. I'm in the middle of reading Life Incorporated. I'm like, oh my God, he knows this. How about you say exactly what they were doing? Because they were taking people's. Actually, please articulate this, because I think you're going to hit this better than me.
They were forcing people to shift the crop on their farms from whatever they were growing, usually rice or something, to opium, basically. And if you refused, you got killed.
And then they were also collecting taxes on that, is my understanding. So they were sort of fucking people in every single direction, and killing them and not worrying about it because that's just extra surplus to them. The only thing they cared about was the bottom line.
And it was also strategic. I mean, it was 2025 Project 2025 level chess. It was also growing opium to give to the people and leaders there in order to destroy their society.
Now, from my understanding and learning more about this, British society was horrified by what they had heard. And in the so-called New World, the colonists, the public intellectuals who were the framers of the Constitution, were pretty horrified by this as well. And horrified that they were now getting held by the balls, excuse me, but that's probably how they felt, by this company, by the company, as it was called. And so that's not a good situation to be in. The way I was taught about the American Revolution, you'd think these were a bunch of spoiled brats who just didn't want their tea taxed. And the reality is, you don't want a group of people who are willing to just kill civilians like it's sport to be in control of your life and your family and your country. And that's the real tyranny that these folks were fighting.
And it was right. So they saw by what was happening in Bengal and what the Dutch East India Trading Company was doing to their enslaved peoples, they saw what it meant to be ruled by a corporation like this. And in their own experience, they were allowed to grow cotton in America, but they couldn't fabricate it. They couldn't make it into cloth. They had to sell it to the company at company prices.
I just learned this reading this amazing guy's book, Life Inc.
And the company shipped it back to England, where it was made into fabric, shipped it back to the colonies, where they could then purchase it at a markup, but they're not allowed to do it themselves. So they were realizing that, oh my gosh, we are not going to be allowed to create and retain any value. We're going to be treated the same as any other enslaved people, which it's an interesting thing. And it's like, at least if they were white colonists and maybe they had bad feelings about slaves, whatever, that's one thing. But to be one of them, that we're going to fight about.
I mean, I think I'm pretty deeply American on many things, but one of them is this very deep sense of being American. Our mutual friend, Danielle Thompson, will talk about how you can't win in American politics without, it's a game of capture the flag. And I think that's important. It's something that the left needs to remember. We cede so much territory to the right on that. They own the American flag. We don't. And the reality is that those ideals in in the Declaration of Independence, in the U.S. Constitution, are beautiful. I mean, they are what Dr. King cites, it's what we're aspiring to. And so I'm deeply American, and you hear this, and this is not what the American way is supposed to be. This is the absolute diametrical.
Well, that is. But let's continue the story. So they all recognized that they were making this new country to get away from the company. And oddly enough, perhaps it's just an oversight, they didn't really mention separation of state and corporation.
No, they just emphasized the church and the state. And this is what I was about to say about being American is, I think about things archetypically, and I think if there's any contribution I can make to this conversation, it is simply quoting Joseph Campbell in his interview with Bill Moyers. Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, he almost said it like a throwaway line, and it really stuck with me in my early 20s. He said something about how, if you want to understand what power is informing your society, what I would call empire, look to the tallest building in the city. And the tallest building in the city was the church. It was the cathedral, so it was the church. Then it becomes the political palace. It's the nation state. And then it becomes the skyscraper. It's the corporation. He said something about, by the corporation by the 1800s. The corporation doesn't become the tallest building in the world until the Empire State Building in about 1931 or 32. But it still was a force to be reckoned with during the founding, during the Constitution. And the ghost in the Constitution, to me, that's so strange is that you have this reckoning of those first two empires, separation of church, separation of state, but you don't with this third, with this what is to become clearly going to be the tallest building. And I think Thomas Jefferson wanted that, and I think he lost that argument, is my guess. He certainly regretted it later. By 1817, he's talking about how corporations are more dangerous than standing armies. I don't know what his role was in this argument. James Madison made some bold proposals, but they were shot down. So it seemed like they were all very concerned, though, about corporate overreach. And yet they did not include the word corporation anywhere in the Constitution.
Right. And then finally, when Lincoln's time, whether it was slipped in by an assistant or intended, there's a marginalia that says that corporations are now granted personhood.
Yeah. So you're watching this. So I'm calling this Ghost in the Constitution the third original sin. Right. The first two are slavery and genocide, but it's that third, absence of corporation, that's fueling the first two. It's underwriting it. And you watch it like America has always been this competition between, are we the land of the free or the home of the slave? Are we working for these ideals, or are we this strand of tyranny, this illiberal strand of tyranny working against them? And it has always been a both end. And I think this evolution that we're talking about here of allowing for corporations to not be in the founding documents, it makes an environment conducive to what happens with Lincoln, and then with corporate personhood. That is such a. I mean, you tell this story so well in Life Inc. Because it's so insane how this happens.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously it was a complete an accident. Who knows? It was an assistant. This dude who just transcribed stuff, and after they had all agreed what the 14th Amendment was, there's a little margin note ends up out of nowhere, saying, and corporations are granted the rights of people. And then they vote on that, and that's what happens. And then it's in the law. And it's really interesting. So corporations and blacks are granted personhood at the same time. And it's go back to your archetypes, more than fitting. It's like, well, shit, if black people who are the black people had been used right through all of slavery to help poor white people feel okay about themselves. Mm-hmm. In other words, the way that you prevent poor white people from revolting against their poverty is show them poor black people who are at least an institutionalized notch below them.
Yes.
So it's like, if you're going to lose the ability to enslave black people, as an example, to whites, then you're going to have to elevate corporations to a new kind of super status.
So poetic.
Right. In order for them to maintain themselves.
It's just so poetic. It is the oldest trick in the book here of using, I mean, in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, they would, I think the foremen or whatever, when Protestant men who were being exploited on the docks would try to strike, their boss would say, like, we've got so many unemployed Catholics that we're not hiring, so go for it. So they'd be pitting the working class against itself, and preventing solidarity based on this kind of identitarian thing in Northern Ireland. We see this in the U.S. much earlier with blacks and whites. And in this regard, and I think anyone who looks up Heather McGhee's wonderful book, The Sum of Us, you see how white people in this country are victims of anti-black racism.
Right. I mean, it's what we've talked about this before. This is what the story in Tulsa that was I guess brought to America's attention in the Watchmen TV series. Back to your thesis on using comic books and all. But there were black people in Tulsa or in the neighboring town who were intentionally, forcibly isolated from the American economy. This was the way that you would show they are excluded from the economy. Ironically, because they were excluded from the extractive American economy of the early 1900s, they did really well, right? They created a circular economy of mutual aid. They took care of each other. They were doing better than the poor white counterparts in neighboring towns who all they had to hold on to was that blacks were doing worse than they were. So that's why they went in and killed all these people, because they couldn't tolerate. It's why we had Jews in the ghetto in the Catholics made the Jewish ghetto, was to show the poor, the peasants of that empire that, don't worry, there are these ones that are worse than you.
I mean, it's the Hunger Games, right?
Right.
Like in the Hunger Games, you have District 12 versus who's white Appalachians, and they're being pitted against almost all blacks in District 11 in the Deep South.
And then, but you wrote about this nice moment, this kind, not that he was perfect in every way either. I'm sure his name's taken off buildings, but that sort of Franklin Delano Roosevelt moment that after the stock market crash, people started to look at, what you're calling them, the Superman years.
Yeah. Well, I think first off, FDR is being pushed by generations of labor movement and progressive era. So it's all very iterative. But I think often in the dialectic, like the big crash of 1929 allowed for room for somebody to do big things right after that. And you have that with FDR. It just so happens the same year that FDR is, starts his new term and brings in this New Deal era, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two nice Jewish boys in Cleveland, Ohio, conceive of Superman. And Superman is so informed by this New Deal era. And he is the one who popularizes the phrase truth, justice, and the American way. Before Superman, the American way, it may have been a throwaway line, but there was no concept of an American way. So Superman is defining the American way as the New Deal era of inclusivity towards immigrants. He himself
is an immigrant from Krypton.
He's undocumented. Yep. He comes here without papers, and he's the one who defines truth, justice, and the American way, not in spite of his immigration status, but because of it. So we have like this brilliant embodiment of those ideals in the Constitution in the form of Superman. And so the Superman years, in some ways, is this 1933 to 1979 era, where, there's so many problems during this era, so many. Like the military industrialization complex is fattening on Vietnam. You've got, there's so much.
Hiroshima.
Say it again.
Hiroshima.
There's a lot of bad shit happening. But the trajectory is ultimately very positive. By 1978, the lowest, the 1% in the U.S. economically owned the least amount that they ever have historically.
I think it was actually the 0.1%.
It was 0.1%.
0.1% only owns 7% of, which actually still sounds sick, right? The top 1/10 of 1% of the country, these few people own 7% of everything. Sounds like a lot, but it's actually the smallest, by far, the smallest that it ever was in history.
Yeah, I don't want to over-romanticize the era, right? Like Dr. King is killed saying that his dream had become a nightmare. So this isn't like some positive, but it was moving.
The trajectory, we have to understand the trajectory from 1929 to 1978 was toward equal justice. And even if you don't believe it was happening on the ground, it was at least happening mythologically, archetypally. Most people said that the most popular show in America, but All in the Family, could be about lambasting a bigot.
Yes.
Like all of America saw him as obsolete.
And you also had, there's just so many wonderful things happening in that era. The Earthrise photo, this photo of planet Earth and this what that does to consciousness, this idea that we're all in it together. There's just so many incredible, just new feelings that are happening here. But then it ends. It ends badly.
Well, the ending of this, the New Deal through civil rights was baked very early on. The National Association of Manufacturers in the 1930s was already formed. The leaders of most of America's corporations saying, we got to stop this. It took a while. And Milton Friedman and libertarianism and the pre-Cato type places, it took a while to do it.
They were emerging. Yeah, it's not like it wasn't. Yeah, you have the Powell Memo, which is not as big a deal as people say, but it's still crystallizing.
Right. Explain the Powell Memo.
It's basically a strategy document that's describing how corporations are going to, I'm paraphrasing here, but how they're going to take back the power, that essentially how they're going to undo FDR. I mean, that's the quick way to summarize it.
And this Powell was when? He was like already in the 70s, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was 71, I think.
Right.
And I think that's right. And if nothing else, it's a crystallization. It's an indicator of Barry Goldwater, of these like just different forces that were trying to undo FDR, trying to undo the New Deal, which is really the first time that we get like true rights to move towards becoming ultimately a democracy, something we've never fully been, but we're working towards it. It's the Superman years, but the kryptonite of America is that ghost in the Constitution, right? It's that lack of mention in corporations. So now we go into the kryptonite years. We go into the Ronald Reagan. This is my birth year, 1979. So it's all my fault. As a nice Jewish boy, I need to blame myself.
Good.
But in,
At least someone takes the blame.
we have Reagan. I'll always do it. We have Reagan, with his campaign, Make America Great Again. It's the MAGA years, like that we've been in. We've never left it.
Right. But the weird thing about the MAGA years, and I knew about this, but had kind of forgotten it, and you put it in the piece, was that, Lee Atwater, who was sort of the PR person, I guess you'd call it, for the Reagan years, he did say the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
I mean, and you quoted him directly. I don't know if you know it offhand.
Yeah, well, I'll paraphrase it, which is that, I mean, basically he's explaining how it used to be that in polite society you could say the N-word. And now with civil rights being popularized and Dr. King and all this stuff, you can't say that in polite society, the N-word. So now you just say tax cuts. You say tax cuts and everyone is going to know exactly what you're talking about. So instead of saying the N-word, we just say tax cuts.
And tax cuts means the rich white people stop paying for poor black people.
Yeah, tax cuts mean that black people, white people are associating black people as the so-called welfare queens,
right,
as the beneficiaries of all of this, the social safety net stuff, when in reality
it's actually a fiction.
Yeah.
Right. But tax cuts means we're going to try to cut programs and things that that favor black people, that will help poverty or whatever. It's really just a class thing.
Right.
But the thing is, if you can maintain the myth that black people are necessarily worse off than the poorest white person, then tax cuts will always mean pushing the black man further down.
Yeah, because in this era, I mean, everyone's paying taxes, and most people probably didn't like paying taxes. And then when you think, because the evening news is telling you essentially your taxes are going to these undeserving people, and there's always a fire in their neighborhood, and they're always black, and you start to feel resentful that like your hard-earned money, and this is for white people, is being taken and giving to people that don't deserve it. So these tax cuts are going to benefit you, keeping the money in your pocket from giving to them when they're not even using your money correctly.
Right.
That's obviously not what I think, but that's what's being presented.
Right.
And so
and they were doing that in an age when we still had almost the Watergate style mainstream media, which didn't go down so quietly, which didn't just buy all that stuff as easily as, say, Fox News did, or now Sinclair and all the local news stations will, by intentionally showing video every night. They'll find something of a black person doing something bad to a white person, pushing someone on a subway, or they'll find some mugshot to put up to keep reifying this ultimately racist projection. Yeah. But the thing that you do so well in your piece and your work is you tie together that this racism is required in order for the corporatist economic plan to function.
Thanks for that. I mean, it's something I feel deeply about, and it's something, when we're in an era right now with the backlash against Black Lives Matter, et cetera, and people the reality is that racism is a weapon of corporatism. That is the reality. Like, this is not simply about, are you racist or are you not racist? Are you colorblind or are you not colorblind? Corporate power, all power at that level, is playing at a very big level, and its job is to expand, not to contract, and it will do anything it can. And it realized early on that it can do this by, as we've already said, dividing people across race lines.
Right.
It's just a simple way to do it. It's not like the corporation thought about that. It's just that's how to do it. There's a wall that is Wall Street, and it was built by enslaved peoples. Yeah, I mean the whole history of the beginning of the corporation is grounded in anti-Black racism and in seeing Black people as commodities to be bought and sold.
Right.
What you do so well, Douglas, is explaining that this is the model of corporatism. It's not just racism. It's how the corporation sees everyone.
I just want to say you're welcome to the thousands of listeners who phoned, emailed, or written in to express your appreciation for Kobe dryer sheets. I know they've changed your lives and you just don't know how to respond. Really, you don't need to do anything more than use them instead of those plastic, chemical-filled, evil, and demonically possessed dryer sheets of the others. Actually, they're not even demonically possessed because they're not organic vessels. Kobe dryer sheets could be possessed if they were so inclined because they are real cotton made lovingly by appropriately compensated labor and renewable energy facilities and completely biodegradable. In a sense, every dryer sheet you buy is being rescued from spiritual attack or other exploitation. You can get a 10% discount by going to KobeDryerSheets.com and using the discount code RUSH10. Right, it is. It is the model of corporate, but the thing that I didn't pull together. I mean, I've always had a kind of a Bernie Sanders view. Like it's all together. We're all the thing. That this artificial divide between white and Black people is silly. It's us against it, not us against them. And I maybe too easily thought that look, let's not worry about the race part because let's just be united. And as I read this work and looked at MAGA, and now we really got to go on to Trump, I realized that this model of corporatism, the kind of corporatism that we are living, has been maintained with the myth of racism.
Yeah.
That it's not that it's part. It's so much a part of it that you actually do have to deal with both.
I think consolidated power has a psyche, and that psyche is animated in Europe by a hatred or a fear of Jews and Roma. And in America, in the U.S., it's animated by a hatred and fear of Black people.
Right. And then that's why you look at the history of Trump, and you see that from the beginning, before there seemed to be any political aspirations, that he was leveraging this same mythology. I mean, how did he respond to the Civil Rights Act as a real estate man?
Just keep Black people out of housing.
Right.
That's
right. I mean, how did he respond once he was in the tabloids of New York to a crime in New York?
to go after the Central Park Five, who are completely innocent, and then once they're exonerated, after he says they need the death penalty, never apologize, never recognize.
Right. And when Obama becomes president,
claim that he's
that he's at whatever a non-birthed something. There was a thing, and it was like, oh. So you end up with the same MAGA as Reagan, but with the racism way more intact.
The permission structure is you don't need to be doing a dog whistle. You could do a bullhorn. I mean, you could be. I mean, it's and that gets into what allows for that permission structure to break down, which is that at least with Reagan, you had gatekeepers. The corporate model of media was all through gatekeepers. Trump emerges at this time, and he is an undiluted model, like an undiluted avatar of corporatism. Like that's what he is. In some ways, like his personality is only that of corporatism.
Right.
And then, but he's still capitalism's clown. He has no ability to get to the White House. he needs a different empire to come in and help him do that.
Right. I mean, and not to be, because I know we have right-wing listeners here as well as left-wing listeners, and this is not to pick on the right more than the left, certainly not the regular conservative right, but there's the distinction, I guess, between the establishment Democrats and the new MAGA Republicans, that the establishment Democrats kept the system in place, the for the most part, by I mean these are the bad ones, not like the progressive ones who want FDR. They would, by sort of releasing steam from the system and making adjustments and compensations. Oh, give them a little health care, give them a little this, prevent that, create the illusion that, to sort of keep it all going and to keep, whoever, GM and Microsoft are, sucking the money out, let the division of wealth not get so much that it gets obscene. Let's not have any trillionaires just yet. Right. Let's just
watered down Reaganism. Just
right. Exactly. Yeah. Just right. And the thing now, though, there's something that is unsheathed about it. At least for those who are willing to look, that is different when the billionaires come to the coronation, and it's not, I don't think, just to bend the knee. I think you're right that it's a way of saying there's a new tallest building in town.
Yeah, but those billionaires were not normal autocrats. They're part of a new empire, I would argue.
Right.
I think you would as well. The archetype shifts. We've talked. I mean, I'm sure that your listeners have a lot of experience talking about this shift from consumer-driven capitalism to surveillance capitalism. But we're, just this capitalism of Silicon Valley and how we become the product.
Right.
I would posit that after 9/11, on September 11th, we witnessed just obviously all of the horrors. To move those horrors aside for a second, there's something else that is killed subtly on live TV, which is the archetype of the tallest building being castrated, essentially, by the church, by a fundamentalist church in a different part of the world. It is one empire fighting with another in a way, but it's showing that these tall buildings are very fragile. And I think that there is a need for something bigger in the American psyche, at the very least. It just so happens, this is not causal, but correlative, that something was growing, this kind of computing cloud that by 2006 in the mainstream is branded the cloud. And the cloud in the sky floats above the tallest building, way, way, way up high. And the cloud is made of water vapor that is invisible. So it's everywhere, but it's also nowhere. It's always watching us. It's here. And this is the thing that gets rid of the gatekeepers, that allows Trump to move from capitalism's clown to becoming its king, and moving it and using it and the power that it gives him to get to the White House.
Right. When that's why, I mean, to get there, right, through Twitter and all that, right. No Russians needed, through Twitter and all that. And then to maintain a control state because through AI and Doge and data, and as long as those people are still coming to dinner at the White House, he has now, I mean, and we've shown there's no regard for any pretense of following the law, right, to every piece of data about every person all the time, right?
Yep.
Which is odd, but the thing that was one of the things that was particularly personally disappointing to me is when the cloud was emerging, before it was even called the cloud, most of me and most of my friends saw it as mycelial and fractal and Gaian and connecting, that the tallest building is bad, right? Because that's pyramidal and that goes up and it's brittle, but that the internet would be all peer-to-peer and side-to-side and allow for the community and mutual respiration and
Yeah, all the
such.
cyberpunk stuff that you were so deeply into, and I got pulled into the net neutrality fight, which is a later iteration of the same fight.
Right.
Let's keep the internet free. Let's prevent it from, going to the place that it was. I mean, this is
Destined to go, maybe.
maybe. I mean, maybe destined and maybe not. Maybe there could have been.
America was the land of the free. The internet was the land of the free. But it gets captured. It gets enclosed. But that's been sort of the object of the game. Whenever one of these free things comes up, is we're dancing, and there are, an elite or the people working for the elite looking, how do we take this thing?
Yep. And so that's where we are. We have essentially two empires that are twins, the corporation and the cloud, neither of which are in the founding documents. And
because both are abstractions.
They're both abstractions.
But the cloud almost gives a body to the corporation. It finally gives it form, because then the cloud can then operate all these robots and AIs and all that. So we had this corporation in the Constitution without knowing it this whole time in the negative space.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was a golem of sorts. It was a chaotic system defined by its lack. But the fact that you didn't give a word to it in there allowed it to be the ground of the Constitution rather than a thing that was controlled. And then we have the cloud, which again has this non-thingness.
Yeah.
So we end up with corporatism less as an enemy we can fight than as the air that we breathe.
Yeah, I guess it's in some ways, by being this amorphous cloud, it's also almost more corporeal. Like, I guess that's what you're saying in a way, which then allows us to fight it, perhaps.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. But then I guess the question I have is it even the thing? In other words, I'm happy I wrote Life Inc. and all that, but I don't even know if capitalism is the problem anymore. Because what they're doing is not capitalism. If I were going to be a smart capitalist and wanted to help all the capitalists, whatever, I could initiate a government system that promoted capitalism and even hurt a lot of other people if we want that to go along with it.
Yeah.
But they're not building a system for business. You don't raid a Hyundai plant in the South and throw 200 South Koreans who are here to train American workers to build a factory in America and give us billions of dollars if you're thinking in a pro-business way. That's not what they were doing.
So what do you think? Because this is tricky. Like, what is happening then?
It feels like what's happening is, Naomi Klein wrote Disaster Capitalism, that they wait around for some really bad thing to happen, like a war or earthquake, whatever, and climate change, and then you make all this money off it.
Yep.
And then you can if you look at the fall of the Soviet Union as the greatest authoritarian opportunity, right? The country collapsed. And then, we weren't really going to go bail them out because they're the Soviet Union. And then the oligarchs come in and buy up and privatize all the public stuff. I think what's going on here is let's make that happen so that we can buy up the stuff. It seems to me at this point, you don't put 100% tariff on all medications coming into the U.S. You don't destroy factories that are attempting to create jobs for American workers. You don't take people off their health insurance at the same time that you double their drug prices, unless you're trying to bankrupt your country.
That takes things, at least in the interpretation I offered, things are being done by a system, not by nefarious individuals who are plotting it out, with the exception of Trump, I guess. But you're suggesting is that there is a kind of men behind the curtain here who actually have this thought out a little bit.
There's always been dudes behind the curtain. There was William Randolph Hearst with the U.S. government and Ed Bernays figuring out how do we invade Guatemala. There was however many, and we know now, CIA people in various U.S. publications before the Gulf War to push American media towards weapons of mass destruction, even though we didn't have evidence of that. So there's always been people. And now I would say it's the architects of Project 2025, the architects of Project Esther, which is about how to create a police state. You do enough things, you try to get people to revolt so that you can say, look, they're violent and we've got to use martial law.
That shit is deep. That's bad stuff. It's really, so they've bought the country in order that they may break it so that they can buy it more deeply than they had already bought it.
Right. With the help of tech billionaires who already believe that only a few of us can make it to the next place, that only people who've leveled up get to go.
What's the end game? What do they want to, where do they, what is it that is it because of climate change that they're afraid of? It's only some of us. Like, why can't they include all of us in this tent? How come there's only room for some of us?
Because I think this era is ending, I guess. The civilization is, they see it. But the interesting thing is the people who believe the most in climate change, if you want to really look at the documentation, it's like the Koch brothers. It's the far right that has all the great documentation on climate change. And they're like, okay, we got to say there's no climate change so we can get all these resources.
We can game this shit.
Yeah. I mean, the other end game you could look at it is like this. To have human consumers, you've got to have human employees, and they cost money and they don't scale. The ideal economy would be to have non-human consumers. So if you can create an economy where you sell computing services and bandwidth and cycles to AIs in return for crypto, then you have a consumer base. So really you could have an entire economy with non-human consumers that cost you nothing but still spend money.
What happens to the rest of us?
Exactly.
So this is a complete takeover by the cloud. This isn't
a
complete
takeover by the cloud.
Takeover by the cloud. Yeah.
Right.
This is pretty dark.
It's pretty dark.
This is pretty dark.
Right.
What the fuck do we do? I mean, we're
well,
up against
a bad story. It's like you say, it's one of those Bond villain stories.
Yeah.
Right. And it kind of works on paper. It works when you look at, I have a master's student who's writing, the history of artificial intelligence. She's starting it. Basically, she's arguing that artificial intelligence from the beginning has been about replacing women. So it was the computers that replaced the calculators, who were the black women who did the calculation for the space program and the military, replaced them first. And now they're going to replace women with, AI sex bots. That it's the trajectory. And women are, at least in the archetypally, they're more the human flesh. Right. Once human flesh is replaced, then you don't need warrior dudes either, whatever their archetype is. So there's always a way out. There's always, and I think the easiest ways are, one, for people to acknowledge their somatic reality. The more addicted to the cloud you are, the more you're feeding into it, and the other is using economic boycotts while we still have that ability.
That's all the leverage we have as Team Human is economic boycotts, and my fear with
our bodies, our communities, our leverage is our friendships with each other, so we can't be turned into each other's enemies to support this thing.
Now, where I would gently push back on the first thing you said, it is these AIs, these things are going to be running things, and they already are to some extent. If the people that are the best of Team Human decide to refrain from that, then we are making them not literate on the things that are going to be necessary to be literate on.
Programmer be programmed. You can understand these things without living in the Skinner box of control. Not everyone has to. I don't think everyone has to be. the hardest battles are going to be maintaining control of land and stuff. You have an organic farm and 50 families working it and educating. What do you do when they say this land's not yours anymore? You're not allowed to be here. That's the model, really. That's what we're seeing in Gaza now, is sort of a model for how do you disenfranchise people to that extent.
Before I even go there, there's something that I wanted to say about this moment with the church, because I think it's a really important moment in this conversation. So I am, for my third piece, so the first piece was all about the first 10 truths of Superman and how he's progressive, essentially. And this very, or if you're a conservative listener, I think you'll still identify with these truths.
He's an ethical good person.
Yeah. Then the second piece is the 11th truth of this kryptonite. It's written 13 to be like the 13 colonies. And the last piece is about these last two truths. But before I even say what those are, I'm in the middle of wrestling with it. I want to say that I've been going to All-Star Superman by your friend Grant Morrison.
Oh, yeah.
Who I've listened to on this and was wonderful. And I had never read All-Star Superman. That is one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever read, and I keep reading it over and over again. I don't know if you've read it or not.
These are the
stuff he did a while ago that inspired James Gunn to make this film. Like he has this moment where Superman creates a universe called Earth Q, and he's dying, Superman, and he watches a world without Superman because he wants to know what that world would be. He creates a world just like his, but with no Superman. He watches the evolution of that world, and he watches Friedrich Nietzsche start writing the word Superman for the first time. Superman's watch. Yeah. I will teach you the Superman was the quote. So he watches his name being invoked, and then he watches Joe Shuster start penning his own image on paper. Superman has created a world.
That's our world.
That's our world that is about to create him. So they're creating each other. It's the most metacognitive thing ever. And it's just like, oh my God, it's a metacognitive wet dream. There is this amazing quote by this mythologist named Michael Meade that when it seems like it's the end of everything, we need to go back to the beginning because the beginning wants to begin again. Going back to our origin story. And that's what Grant Morrison's doing with Superman. He's taking him back all the way to Nietzsche. And there's something about Nietzsche's quote, God is dead, that is so important. It gets left out. He said, and we killed him. And there's another part of it where he talks about how he got disconnected from the sun. This is the moment in human history that Nietzsche's writing in the 1880s. The Washington Monument in 1888 becomes the tallest building in the world. It is the first time in forever that a piece of architecture, of human architecture, is created that is not devoted to something divine. It is devoted to something about state power without anything divine towards it. A couple years later, the Eiffel Tower ends up bumping it off, and then eventually we have, the other corporations. And but the tallest building is about to replace the church for the first time, and Nietzsche is writing God is dead.
And it's the Masons,
and we killed him. And we kill him. What he's saying is, it's not about whether you believe in God or not. That's the misinterpretation. It's that this feeling of existential grounding, of cosmic grounding that we have had as human beings is gone. And what is to replace it is going to be ideology. It's going to be social status. It's going to be your existential grounding. Abstraction.
Rather than ground.
And he was right? We have World War I. We have World War II. We have communism and fascism and capitalism and individualism, and ultimately it's corporatism.
Right. And these Ubermensch guys, the tech elite guys, they're like, we'll take him at his word. Then what replaces God is this abstract sense of whatever. So we'll go for that. The most money, the most symbols, the most that. Whereas what Nietzsche was saying, I think, most readers would say is, no. That doesn't work. That's soulless and awful and will lead to existential despair.
Well, Hitler used Nietzsche too. So there's a lot to say about Nietzsche and the complexity there. But they're taking him in one direction.
Right.
Whereas you have this young Jewish kid, Jerry Siegel, 17 years old. Parents are refugees. His father works in a store, and these thugs come in.
Right.
It's during the Great Depression. His father has a heart attack and is killed because of this robbery. Jerry goes to a very dark place. He's got siblings. He's got a mother. They have no money now. They all depended on the father. The middle of the Great Depression, they're economically destitute. He starts to write the Superman as this evil, villainous character who's rageful. And then one night it shifts. It just shifts over time. He's working with Joe Shuster, and he suddenly saw hope. He saw someone who was going to serve the light. And he runs over and he subverts Nietzsche's Superman. He creates a Superman that is serving opposed to dominating. And this is a vision of us with power to relate to power differently. And I think but I think that moment of God is dead is just so important to look at, because that's when fundamentalist religions begin to be born, around the 1880s, right around there. We didn't really have fundamentalist religions in the way that everyone is trying to fill ourselves with some spiritual void that we've had since this moment of Nietzsche's great eulogy, if you will, when machines were taking away soul, and we're all feeling very orphaned. We're feeling orphaned from our sense of cosmic grounding and our sense of meaning. And I think that Superman, the actual Kal-El, Clark Kent Superman, is a character that starts to serve a certain direction. The 12th truth is that he represents hope, and the S symbol means hope in Kryptonian. But to get to hope in our world with all of this hopelessness, you need something much bigger. You need a symbol. You referenced it earlier, Douglas, of a golem, which is this symbol in Judaism that gave people hope and protected people and was like the original superhero. And I think that symbol exists amongst us. And I think that symbol is the solar panel. Superman is solar powered. His entire power comes from our yellow sun, which is a huge part of Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. He ends up merging with the sun by the ending, but there's just dozens of examples throughout Superman lore of his connection to the sun.
Right, and with the sun being the original god of most religions.
And so
many.
And so
there were also mud religions and water religions.
But we all were sun worshipers at some point. And Carl Jung once asked an indigenous person what the sun was, and he just answered matter of fact, like, it's God, like, duh. And there's this wonderful meme I saw of some conquistadors that are talking to some indigenous people and saying, without us, you'd still be worshiping the sun. And the indigenous person replies, dude, the sun is real. And here's the other thing about the sun. It's taller than the tallest building.
Right.
It's taller than the cloud, not by a little, but by like 93 million miles.
Right.
And it is fusion in the sky, and a miracle has happened. Like, it's Hollywood. Bill McKibben, the great climate legend, just came out with a book called Here Comes the Sun, and he says this is like a Hollywood movie. Something crazy just happened where we just passed the 1.5 Celsius mark. That's bad. And solar just became cheaper than fossil fuels for the first time ever.
Right.
So here's where the hope is, and why the oil,
But that's why we had to get rid of renewable energy now.
Absolutely.
Because, that if we were in, this is why I think capitalism is over. If we were in a free market of any sort, then we would have flipped to solar right now.
It would make the price, it's cheaper, but you can't keep selling solar. You can only sell the panels.
Right.
You can't keep, the sun is distributive.
And
it's the real internet.
But is solar enough to do all the AIs? I think you need burst power. I think to do AI the way that everyone wants, I think you need nuclear at this point.
Well, my understanding, and I don't think anyone should look to me as the expert here, is that nuclear has been, it actually is helpful, but it's been largely inefficient. And solar is the one that's actually the efficient model of energy here. This is what McKibben's arguing, and he backs it up with receipts. In terms of efficiency, there's, I think nuclear is probably tied with fossil fuels.
Right.
And then you have wind, and then you have solar as the most efficient. It's the cheapest. they don't want us to have it, the they being the corporation, because they can't.
We're still in a fossil fuel based economy.
But they also can't sell it back to us. It's your vision, Douglas, from the 90s of the internet. It's the actual distributive model, and it's us finally embracing the thing we've always been, which is we live on a living rock that is worshiping the sun. And if we can go back, the ending wants to begin again. Let's go back to the beginning. And that's the end of my piece, probably. The spoiler warning.
I want you to understand why these aren't just a silly product that's like a little bit better. It's the guy, Tom, who makes these dryer sheets is thinking about the whole thing. So like the labor that makes it, how they grow the cotton, how they put this together. You know, you can have like a nice, totally organic cotton t-shirt and it says organic and wonderful, but the manufacturing of that thing uses all these chemicals and all this waste and all this crap. They make these things with that perfect little cotton, but then they have a new process to fabricate the cotton so it doesn't put all that crap. And then when you get it, you get this thing that's like not bad. You just put it in the washer and use it as a dryer sheet, and you take it, you throw it away like with your friggin' compost. It's like and it biodegrades, and it's this kind of perfect cycle of life thing. And that's the difference between this and his change diapers that he's coming out with soon and all these other products, is that they're actually sort of end-to-end part of the regenerative cycle and not just, greenwashed, oh, this is good for the world.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. And then it's interesting, too, that, the day after Trump goes to the UN and says that, climate change is a hoax and all that China walks up and says, we're doing renewable, we're doing solar, we're doing that. We just happened to do an experiment with fusion that lasted 17 seconds. And it's odd, and it's not to say that Chinese are great or whatever, but they've, got
some problems in their country.
Yeah, some real problems. But Marshall McLuhan would say they're in a stronger position against the cloud because they weren't disconnected from the ground by print. That the phonetic alphabet versus the picture alphabet. The picture alphabet kept you grounded, whereas the phonetic alphabet started our layers of abstraction. First with text, first with that, then with the printing press, then with that. And so they've maintained a certain continuity of ground that we didn't lose, even though they're in. Although it looks like we'll all be in similar levels of authoritarianism before long.
Well, I mean, we don't want the Chinese communist model to win because it's opposed to democracy, but they do have the advantage of the state power has different motivations than the corporate, which of course they are motivated by corporate power in China too. But that's fascinating about the language. That I didn't know this about.
I just had Luke Kemp on the show, the author of Goliath's Curse, and that's really about pyramidal civilizations versus flat distributed ones. And basically he writes about how pyramidal ones, which are based in competition and exclusion, they eventually get so brittle that they collapse on themselves. And I do think that's happening anyway. I mean, for however negative things sound when I talk about their plan, and however negative it feels when we realize how many decades behind the Democrats were in whatever their supposed alternative to this was supposed to be. And they didn't really have one because they were fucking corrupt corporatists themselves, that what they're building is extremely brittle. This AI cloud monstrosity building is very, very, very still. It's very tall, very thin. It's only like 3 or 4 trillionaires at the top and everybody else not. There's only so long they can hold back our zombie apocalypse. Right? We're the zombies now.
Right. Right. But isn't that what they want, you said? Don't they want that zombie apocalypse?
I think they can win a zombie apocalypse. I don't think in the end they can win. There's too many zombies. I mean, I guess if the world's that polluted and we can't evolve fast enough and don't become like radioactive cockroaches, I don't know.
But
I think there's a point
if we
at which
win that zombie apocalypse, that still sucks. We're still just zombies.
Then we rebuild. I mean, because we're not really zombies. We're people.
Right.
They made us look like zombies in the movies, but we're just all the zombies. Those are climate refugees, right? They're just the masses. They're teaching us. I think they're teaching us to see them as zombies.
So you think the hope is a long game of watching this civilization burn itself to the ground, and then some kind of spirit ends up resurrecting it?
I think the hope is being as uninvested in the pyramid as possible and as invested in the horizontalism of your community and your other people, so that when that thing collapses, it takes as few of us down with it. If they're building the Tower of Babel, don't climb up there. Don't go up there.
So we're trying to live amongst these towers and this cloud, but also believe in this kind of localism to survive, this kind of revolution of values that we're part of.
And that kind of work, although I don't know what AI is listening to what we're talking about, but I don't think that kind of work is that threatening to the powers that be. I'm not talking about revolution. I'm talking about local resilience. Let's be less of a strain on the government. They're working on something. They're working something out. So I always say, so what if our community could survive 90 days before FEMA got here rather than just 6? Wouldn't that be good?
You're going to a very practical place here.
Yeah.
And that's very, very wise, I think.
Oh,
it's remarkably wise.
That, and though what you, and I've always resisted your work because of this. You did like the Jedi thing.
Yeah.
For the campaign, was it 2016? And
yeah,
tried to get all everyone to sign the Jedi thing. And I was like, is it just too silly? Too silly by half. I was always like, do I sign on or not? Because, but I do think you're right. I'm a fan of Grant Morrison too, and he's affected so much I do. I used to get in arguments with him that I was, after 9/11, we've got to be political, and he would always say, no, just don't bother. There's nothing, they don't care what you have to say. But now when you talk about him, he's fucking political. It's just different. He's doing it at a different wavelength. He's not, marching or talking about, political issues, but he's trying to restore a magical, mythological sensibility that's not just magical thinking out there. It's actually a kind of faith in existence and each other that we need to have in order to persevere.
So this has been an evolution on your part.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you were resistant to my work. I mean, a lot of people have been, and I've had to, always contend with that. But so the Star Wars piece that I was doing was actually, I was even resistant to it myself, but
it's so corporate, it's like originally it was an indie movie, but Star Wars is like Disney fucking,
Oh, see, now can we let's challenge each other here a little bit. I recognize that it's corporate. I think that and they own the intellectual property, but they don't own the intellect. And I think they have a power with archetypes because they hire people that are very good at that. Grant Morrison is clearly one of them, but there are so many. And this is where the power is. And I think that a lot of progressives have made a terrible error in over-investing in our idea of what humans are by looking at the Enlightenment.
Right.
A little too much.
Right. And it's all pure and abstract. But all right, so even if it's okay to go use, whatever we want, South Park, Beavis and Butthead, whatever mythology you want, Harry Potter, even if she's been canceled, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. The Jedi are revealed in the next stream. They're the bad guys.
Right.
So why do we want everyone taking a Jedi pledge?
Well, I mean, I would challenge the Jedi pledge at this point, but that's like a different conversation. I think what we want is to
for people who don't know, he did this campaign where he was trying to get politicians, people running for office, to accept the Jedi pledge. And the Jedi pledge basically just said, we're not going to be an evil fuck. I'm going to be good and fight for people. It was nice.
You have
somebody,
fine.
Some couple people did, right?
I mean, like 5 people. No, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, more of my success was in the Hunger Games and a campaign called Superman as an Immigrant and all of my Harry Potter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Star Wars stuff was pretty good, but it was a little forced sometimes. A part of the reason for that was that I was trying to do a money in politics campaign around Star Wars because Star Wars was being rebooted, because I just predicted the election was going to be really boring in 2016.
Right.
That it was going to be Hillary Clinton versus Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, and everyone was going to be uninspired.
Right.
It turns out that I kind of got trumped and burned. Bernie and Trump had the same idea. I didn't need to make the election more interesting. They made it more interesting. Right. And what they brought, you have Bernie coming in with this Old Testament God thing or Old Testament prophet thing that he's bringing. And you have Trump who brings, this is an individual who I said is, he is the embodiment of corporatism, but he's also the embodiment of mythos. And I think that one of the reasons that progressives have such a hard time defending ourselves is that he is speaking a different language in the human psyche than we are. We're using facts and figures. It doesn't matter whether he's lying or not. He's giving a feeling of protection at a reptilian level to the people who love him and need him. And he's filling it through mythology because we've done such a shitty job of doing it. And we had so many opportunities to do it. Dr. King did it beautifully.
Right. But the left is allergic to mythology. And that's why I don't even like calling myself left anymore. I'm something else. I really am. But the left's been allergic to it because, any good Marxist is talking about facts and conditions on the ground.
Right.
And the fascists are the ones using mythology and blood and soil and artificial myths of nation states.
Of course, they always end up coming up with their own mythologies as they do it. And they mythologize their heroes. The left.
Right. But that's why we look at mythology itself as the danger.
My feeling,
especially as Jews.
Yes, but we also...
People with mythologies, it's like they get dangerous. They hang us.
But what are Jews but constantly sitting around neurotically talking about our own mythology and trying to build these meta texts around the text? We're obsessed with it too. I think that, the work that I did that has been successful with using mythology and fandom and all of that stuff, I've said that the number one thing that it achieved was proving an argument that fantasy is not an escape from our world, but an invitation to go deeper into it. And ultimately, this is about cultural acupuncture, which is finding where the energy is in the culture, moving that energy authentically to create a healthier body for our world. And the 4 proverbial needles of cultural acupuncture are myth, ritual, symbol, and community.
But those are ones I can do. So no, seriously though, I'm happy with those. The myth
is the big story.
Yeah, and the culture, did you say?
Ritual enacts the story.
Right. Myth, ritual. We all know, I like that one.
Symbol expresses the story.
Symbol, that's my education. And then what?
Your big one, community. It embodies the story. That's Team Human. That's what you're building.
This is like theater and friendships.
And relationships and networks.
Ecstatic dance stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So then what about like the like learning the law and the government and protesting and politics? Do we have to do that stuff still?
Well, I think I don't know if we I don't know if we have to for every individual, but I think we still need it.
We do. We got to get out on the streets, right?
Well, I don't know. This is a tough moment to do it.
I know.
It's really surreal.
They're taking pictures.
Why is it so? Because I think the thing I get, I loved going to march after march. I was in D.C. at the time. In 2017, it was Women's March and Science March. And this, what happened? No marches. I think everyone's just so tired, and he's wearing us down.
Where was the one? I went to the big one that was down Fifth Avenue. That was fun.
The No Kings Day?
Yeah, No Kings.
Yeah, but notice how it's I didn't go to that one because it was complicated, but I just didn't go because I was actually working on social media about it that day.
Uh-huh.
I wish I had gone. I just feel like the energy is different, and part of it...
But that might be it. It might be a good thing.
Yeah, maybe.
It might not be that, we're all too scared to protest and whatever. But it might be that we understand on a certain level that taking to the streets and escalating it in the streets is going to would give government the excuse to lock down certain things worse. That maybe there are other ways, there's other styles of, I don't even want to use the word resistance, because resistance is not digital. Resistance is from the electric age, right? Resistors. It's attenuating. It's like rheostats. It's really it's more opposition in a polarized thing. How do you oppose?
To me, the answer, and this is not that I have an answer, but to the degree that I do, or that I want to posit one, it is we need something big to believe in. That something should extend beyond our mortal coil. And I am all for people having whatever faith they have, go with that, but worship the sun. That is the central myth, I think, for our time. And we need rituals around that. We already do. They're called fucking birthdays. They're called the calendar. Everything is already worshiping the sun. Bill McKibben just started Sun Day. People can look that up. There's the symbol is the sun. The symbol is the earth. And the community, I mean, that gets into who's doing it and how we're doing it. But I think the thing we need to push for is for us to be able to do solar, to do more renewable, and to get the state out of the way. I mean, these permit processes to change to solar are very hard, and they shouldn't be so hard. And this is liberalism's fault, not just the right. We've created too much state, too much bureaucracy in a way that made sense, but not for solar, because we're in an emergency and we got to move.
And we believe for sure that solar really, really, really is good.
Well,
it doesn't, like, you don't have to get some slave child to get rare earth metals.
I think there is
non-renewable, blah, blah.
I don't think that there's going to be a way, from my limited understanding, again, I read Bill McKibben's book. Right now, we need to treat this as the emergency that it is. There is no way that the renewable energy, from my understanding, is going to be completely clean as we want it to be with mining. That is a problem, and we're going to need to deal with that problem. But we already have that problem with fossil fuels in big ways with coal.
Right.
We already have it with, so this is not saying this is all good. And there's going to be solar, like corporate power is definitely going to be taking on that. That's how you know you win, when the marketplace tries to own it. So this is not a promise that's naive towards power. It is a promise that is, we have about 5 years to get our shit together, and Trump is taking it up. But the good news is that the thing that's been in our way, capitalism, loves low prices, and this is the lowest priced thing. And if we can convert the economy, we can maybe slow down some of this bullshit around mining.
So then part of the object of the game is to save capitalism.
I hope not.
I hope not. But
it has to be
the lower cost of solar will only function in a marketplace.
I think that the object of the game is to win, and to do it however you can. And win in this case is survival of our species and all species. So we have to triage and prioritize accordingly. It doesn't mean save capitalism. It means fuck capitalism the way it's fucked us. We use it, and but there is a huge danger in that, right? Like FDR, maybe there shouldn't have been an FDR. Maybe he saved capitalism in this. So the problem with that is that it gets so theoretical, and the stakes are so high. There's millions of lives at stake here on coastal nations. So it's not.
And I do like the worshiping the sun helps include all the others. Like, I had the folks from Tamara on here. It's a experimental, the permaculture community in Portugal. And they just did a movie called like Water is Life or Water is Love. And they're contemplating water, that you can judge a civilization by how it treats its water.
Oh, wow.
And what it understands about water. And they're showing how you can create microclimates by just digging little holes in the ground, and you actually can create rainfall and all this.
Oh, that's incredible.
But if you do treat the sun as your, let's call it object of devotion, as opposed to any of the others that we may have picked along the way, if you really do choose the sun, it opens up opportunity for all of the sort of Buddhist style contemplative meditations. So you could contemplate the sun involved with water and how it evaporates it into the clouds and then back down. You can make the sun into the plants and the chlorophyll and that, the sun into the day and the night. The sun, it really
grounds you.
It grounds, right.
And it does change your relationship with water. I mean, it's only one element. It's fire. Well, I guess, and plasma. So it's that fifth element that no one really talks about. But yeah.
Because it's interesting, because the Jews we had the thunder god, right?
Yeah.
So that's, there was the thunder god at Sinai. That's why God made the earth with his voice.
Yep.
We're sound people, which is why we like to talk with the Spielbergs, there's a lot of talk and sing and so, and that's why we're linguistic.
Yep.
But the sun goes back.
It goes back,
and it shuts you the fuck up, and in its power. And according to the astronomy people I know, apparently the sun's about to do some weird stuff over these next decades.
Well, that could be helpful, maybe, or not.
It'd be, some of them are going to be bad, but it will restore our respect for that big yellow dot in the sky. These solar powers and radiation and all the kind of stuff that the sun does in various stages.
I mean, if you just take rational, just what we understand about the birth of the universe, it was here before the earth. It was before the before. It's the most primordial thing we can relate to. If you want to get really new agey about it, we're all made of star. And that's not even new agey. That's just reality. We actually are the composites of all of the elements that come from stars.
Shine on, you crazy diamond.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, and so we're worshiping ourselves. We're finding a divine spark within us. It's very Kabbalistic.
Yeah.
This is just me being desperate. And I'm like, the sun, but it works with the model, right? It's taller than the tall, and they can't control it completely because it's diffuse. There is the mining question, and we need to find a way around it. We need to create human rights conditions that can, but I don't pretend to know all the answers here.
And the other thing, if we can conserve on our use of AI, the reason why everybody's energy bills are going up, and again, this is not really talked about in the news, is we're competing with AIs for
all that
stuff. That's why all the bills went up. It's not because, they're trying to say, it's because the governors are trying to force us to use solar power, which costs more. It's like, no, it's because half of this shit's being used by server cycles.
I mean, one thing I'd say about this is we don't need to get rid of AI. We just need to discipline it. We need to discipline it towards Team Human opposed to us serving it.
Well, right. I mean, in the way it's programmed, although I have a guest who says it's going to kill us all no matter what, if it goes AGI. But I would think, at least for the time being, we have to look at the impact of this stuff on energy and the environment. And until, Bill Gates builds all his little suitcase-sized portable nuclear power plants to fuel these things, or we get fusion, which we got to send. Jeff Bezos got to go to the moon and get some of that.
Yeah, that's a different
discussion.
Or whatever. Yeah.
We maybe do a few less prompts,
but we can't afford. We don't have enough time to wait for us to come up with fusion and for Bezos and all. We need to move now, and we have the power of fusion in the sky. That's the. I don't mean to say this isn't going to be painful, because we have. I mean, the end of my piece, I said that it's midnight in America opposed to morning in America, and that Trump is the embodiment of all four empires at once: the fundamentalist church, the authoritarian state, the corporate, he's just corporate, and all of the shittiness of the cloud and the killing of truth that comes with a cloud monopoly. The framers, to go back to the beginning of the discussion, they feared one tyrant controlling one empire, the state. They wouldn't have been able to predict the cloud, but he's controlling all four. And this is a dark moment. But Dr. King said, when it is darkest is when you can see the stars. And that's our vision. But it's also our fucking sun.
Right.
So
it's a big star right up there all day.
We have it all the time. And it gives us everything always. And if we don't, what is climate change? Bill McKibben says in the book, besides, I mean, I'm going to paraphrase him, but like a fucked up relationship with the son.
Right.
We have to change the relationship, which actually is ultimately what Grant Morrison's masterwork here is about. There is a villain tyrant son, and then there's Superman merging with the son, and he ends up becoming part of the son at the end of the story. So, so that's my hope, but I think that should be merged with your vision of Team Human and a local relationships, all of these brilliant things that you're saying here.
Right. Well, that's why we're here together, right?
Yeah, except you're fucking skeptical of my work.
I'm skeptical of the pop culture campaigns in the political sphere, because I was watching Trumpism begin to enter that fray, and it seemed to me that kind of play was going to get difficult. So even I had this conversation with the Yes Men. It's like in an era of destabilizing disinformation.
Yes.
Do you want to do pranks on the media that make people wonder, was this real or not?
What they say.
Yes, always. Destabilize, because it's destabilized for good rather than destabilized for bad and all that. And I'm like, yeah, but I watch very little news now, because there's very little
Me too. Lately,
that I can do about the stories that I'm watching, and there's a lot I can do to restore local resilience and our mutual aid, connection to the ground, basic coherence. I can make us more resilient to to what's happening, and everybody plays their own part in whatever this is in the movement. Some people are making sandwiches, and God bless them. Everybody finds their.
God bless the sandwich eaters, for they are the.
But you know what I mean? If you're making sandwiches and bringing them to people on the front lines, that's your job.
Absolutely.
Or you're a medic, or you're a chaplain, or you're a whatever. I'm ready to do what the leadership tells me to when they're there.
Yeah.
I know I'm not a leader myself, but
You don't see yourself as a leader?
No.
Well, you're certainly considered one of our great thought leaders. MIT Review apparently had that whole thing about you being. How did you feel about that when you were like number 7 most influential thinker in the world? Like,
I liked it, except the 2 of the names above me, I didn't know who they were.
I mean,
but I was right behind Richard Florida.
But doesn't that make you a leader?
Thought leader. That doesn't really mean anything. What they actually did for that was some kind of mimetic analysis. It's where they use like early big data stuff, looking at all the nodes and connections. And what they saw was that even though people didn't really necessarily know my name, that the ideas that I had were like spreading to like really important people who would then share them. So it was like, if you see like, Obama is talking about present shock. It's like, where did he get that word?
Right.
Oh, this guy. So it was like,
So how did you feel about that? Or watching The Social Dilemma and seeing them like just this like, or people like to say, I was humbled, but do you feel like a kind of like, I'm really important? Like, is that it must be a nice feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, from when I was in college and people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would just be like, just want a seat at the table.
Well, you got a seat at this table.
Well, right. We got our own table now.
And we're building our own table, and the table is Team Human.
And it's a round Team Human table.
It reminds me of what Dr. King talked about at the end of his life around building a revolution of values and he was building a movement that he never lived to see and ultimately never really existed. That was going to rebel against the corporate empire in like a multiracial solidarity way. And it feels like you're expressing intimations of such a thing with Team Human. I'm not calling you Dr. King here. I'm not trying to, but I am.
Echoes.
It echoes
of that, and hopefully, because the Team Human really isn't me. It's I'm articulating things that I'm seeing all around, which is another job. Right? It's almost like a DJ. It's it is though. I'm a cultural intellectual DJ of some sort.
This has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, for me too.
Do you have anything do you want to
Angie Slack. What's the thing called again?
So it's technically called Orphans, Empires, and the Search for a Better World, but I want to change it to just Orphans and Empires.
Orphans and Empires.
That's the Substack is just go to Substack, search Orphans and Empires.
Go to Substack while you can. Follow it when it goes off Substack, when we're all kicked off there for God knows what. But Orphans and Empires is how to find Andrew Slack and his stuff. And I'm looking forward to part 3.
I got to tell you, Douglas, when I wrote this, I was thinking of you.
Aww.
I sent it over. I'm so nervous. I went over the email so many times. I'm like, all of it was to one day just have a conversation about this, and maybe you would appreciate this archetypal model enough that after years of conversation, I could get on this podcast. And then you right away were like, you want to be on the podcast? And I was like, oh shit, I'm not ready. I don't.
You are.
This was fun. This is so fun.
Your work is ready.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for being on Team Human. And thank you for being on Team Human. You can support this thing, if you choose, by going to teamhuman.fm and clicking on support. You'll get ad-free versions of the shows. You're going to get live Team Humans, mostly here in New York. I'm actually meeting with the guy tonight about doing monthly Team Humans in Tribeca that you get to come to for free. No one else will. And it's just a good thing. Team Human is produced by Joshua Chaplin, and this one's edited by the great team at MCM. And we're supported by Everyone's Earth. We have those ads at the beginning and the end. That's Everyone's Earth. They're good. And I guess that's about it. Thanks for bearing with us. I hope this was hopeful, because it should be hopeful. There is hope. At least we're here right now, breathing together. It's all good. All right. Thanks for being on Team Human, our last best hope for peeps. Team Human is made possible by Everyone's Earth, the maker of Kobe dryer sheets and a growing line of sustainably sourced and manufactured products that are also completely 100% biodegradable. Yes, your wash cycle can now also be a part of the cycle of life. Moreover, in addition to supporting a company that's actually trying to fix the Procter & Gamble nightmare in which we've become enmeshed, you'll be supporting this show. And as a Team Human Insider, you can also get a 10% discount on Everyone's Earth by using the discount code RUSH10. How's that?